Welcome to Beat Diabetes, where we discuss ways and means to defeat that monster that has attacked your life. And we share testimonies of people who have done just that. On today's program, we'll share several different things, including my own parents and how it is that my dad and mom ate the exact same diet, same desserts, pretty much same portions, and yet mom turned out to be diabetic, dad never did. Also, I'll discuss why it is that I'm not technically keto in terms of my diet. If you've recently been diagnosed with diabetes and you've just discovered this channel, let me recommend that you go to our uploads page, which will give you access to every diabetic video we've posted since we began. As you work your way through all our videos, I believe you'll find the help you need. A link to our uploads page is in the description. Well, here's a note left under one of my videos by a lady who says, I had raging diabetes just 6 weeks ago and went immediately on keto. Been watching your channel, absolutely love it. 6 weeks ago, I had blood sugar of 22, which would be 400 American. And she says, now I'm testing at 5.3, which would be around 90 American. Well, I appreciate you doing the conversions for us and for me. She says, I shocked my doctor yesterday. Don't you love it when doctors get shocked for the right reason? Shocked my doctor with my new low blood sugar. And then she leaves a comment, which is really the reason I wanted to share this note from her. She says, I was too scared to be diabetic, and so I'm keto for life. Too scared to be diabetic. Well, there are some things worth being afraid of to the point of motivation. You know, we human beings, we have the ability to fear. And there are certain fear emotions and fear physical responses that we all have. Our heart beats a little faster when we're very much afraid. Adrenaline is pumped and put into our bloodstream. Our whole body works better. People run faster when they're afraid than when they're not. And there have been stories of women who lifted heavy cars off their husbands when a car fell on them that they could never have done apart from fear. So fear has its uses, and she says, I was just too scared to stay diabetic for the rest of my life. Well, good for you. Very smart. Diabetes is nothing to mess around with. I remember hearing a story when I was in Minnesota. I think it was Minnesota. I think it was Montana, actually. I think I was in Montana, bear country. And so one guy was telling me some bear stories. And he told me an interesting story about a photographer that had been following a bear around with his girlfriend at a distance. He had a powerful zoom lens, so it's not like he was up in the bear's face, but at a distance he'd been following a bear, taking pictures all day long. And when it was getting close to dinner time, the girlfriend left to go make some food, make a dinner for them. He said, I'll be along soon. Well, he never came back. And they found him dead, mauled by the bear. And his camera was beside him. And when they took his camera, in those days it was film, when they took the film out of his camera and they developed it, the last picture on that roll was the bear looming over him, about to charge and up on his hind legs. And here this photographer was being faithful to the end. He was snapping a picture of the bear as it was about to attack him. But that was very foolish. That's not the time to take pictures. He should have shown a little more fear and got out of there when he saw the bear headed his way. So anyway, she was afraid, and she decided she would do something about it. She says, I immediately went keto, and bam, she's doing very well, averaging around 90 milligrams per deciliter, 5.3. Wow, wonderful. Okay, here's another comment. As long as I've watched this channel, This person says, I tried to get my severely diabetic elderly neighbor interested in this new and correct way of managing blood sugar. I send him these videos. He told me he'd rather die than give up his bread, cereal, and desserts. Now the doctors are fighting to help him avoid having his leg amputated. He has a huge, infected, stinking black heel wound. He's scared to death. He still stubbornly refuses to change. He's like a petulant child. When I think about it, I think that's crazy. So now I just pray for him. Well, it is really, if not crazy, at least irrational, not to take care of yourself. We should do whatever we can to take care of ourselves. And if someone hands you the answer and you don't use it, that is, if not crazy, again, irrational. It doesn't make sense. Now, some people have died from diabetic complications because they just didn't know the answer. They did everything the doctor told them. The doctor said, cut your fat way down. They cut their fat way down. The doctor said, be sure and eat your healthy carbs. They were sure to eat their healthy carbs. They just didn't know any better. So that's not crazy. That's not irrational. They just had the wrong information. But some people, when they get the right information, they still refuse. And they're like, well, if I have to give up bread, if I have to give up my sweets, why, I'd rather be dead. And lo and behold, they get their wish. So you just got to use a little wisdom. And the problem is not just that you'll die sooner than you might otherwise have. But the problem is that you'll have some terrible last years. Now, as I've told you many times, my mother was diabetic. My dad was not. They ate virtually the same meals. They had the same diet, which was a standard American diet. But the difference was my mom loved to eat. My dad, he just ate as he needed to. He ate to live. And my dad was always slim and never had diabetes. My mom was always on the chubby side, not severely obese, but on the chubby side. And she loved to snack, and she had diabetes. And she went to the doctor after it became a serious issue in her life, and he told her cut the fat and eat the healthy carbs, and she cut the fat and she ate the healthy carbs. She was not crazy. She was not irrational. She was doing what she knew to do. Tell you the truth, had I lived back in those days, that's what I would have done too. There was no information to the contrary much. I think Atkins was around before she died, but she never got hold of that, and none of us ever even thought about the Atkins diet back in those days. Some people were thinking about it, but she never did. And so even though they ate the same diet, my mom was always a bit overweight. My dad was underweight. He never weighed more than about 135, most of his life. In the Army, I think he got up to about 150. And somehow, being in the Army, you gain weight rather than lose for skinny people. But she just didn't know. Nowadays, anybody who really wants to know can know. There's enough information out there, including this channel and many others, and all kinds of great books. And Dr. Fung has written some great books, and he's got a YouTube channel. Dr. Richard Bernstein. So there's a lot of great information if you're willing to search for it and really consider it. But if you just go with the standard advice, which even the standard advice is starting to change, thank the Lord, but sometimes it's not there yet. Anyway, she says it's crazy. I say, well, if not crazy, it's irrational. Okay, another comment. Hello, Dennis. I have a question about your diet. You mentioned you follow a low-carb diet, but it appears to be more like a keto diet. I know low-carb and keto are not the same. Could you expand on that? Well, yeah, and most of the time when I talk about going to the proper diet, I'll say low-carb / keto or low-carb or keto, and I don't usually just say one or the other because they both work. The difference, in my estimation, has to do with whether you lean more toward protein or you lean more toward fat, or you don't really pay much attention as long as it's low carb, that whether it's protein or fat. And I kind of fit into that category. I don't lean really toward protein, but I am not fanatical about counting how much fat I get into my diet and making sure I get 70% of my calories from fat. I have no clue, tell you the truth, how many what the percentages are. I am not afraid of fat, and I sort of move toward fat. I sort of embrace it where I can. So when I'm having bulletproof coffee and I'm putting some heavy cream and some butter in my coffee, I'm getting a lot of fat, and I'm not afraid of it at all. And I kind of like the idea of getting that fat. So I'm getting some calories. Sometimes I'll have a meal, and sometimes some of you comment to me and say, your meals are so small. How can you even stay at any kind of a reasonable weight with such small meals? But I drink bulletproof coffee at least once a day normally, and sometimes twice a day. So I'm getting a lot of calories from almost pure fat when I'm doing that. And for that reason, I don't need to eat as much. I can have a small meal, and then I have a cup of bulletproof coffee with it. And so I'm getting a lot of calories from fat that way. And I understand that. But I never worry about whether I'm actually getting 70% of my calories from fat. I'm not afraid of protein. And normally protein is not a problem as long as you don't have kidney problems. Some people say, well, it'll give you kidney problems. There's no evidence of that as far as what I have been able to read. And Dr. Bernstein says the same thing. Basically, what Dr. Bernstein says is if you have kidney problems, then you might want to cool it on eating so much protein. But if you don't think that eating a lot of protein will give you kidney problems. According to him, it will not. So I can eat a big steak, and I don't worry that, well, I'm getting more protein than fat by eating this steak. Or eat a hamburger patty and say, well, I'm getting fat and protein, but I'm getting a little too much protein. So I better go eat 3 sticks of butter or something like that. I don't worry about that. So in that sense, I am low carb rather than keto. But I respect the keto diet, and I know you can get victory over diabetes very easily on a keto diet. So I don't worry about that, but I don't see it as totally necessary. I think some people have been really scared about protein unnecessarily. And I know the standard line among the keto folks is protein raises blood sugar, not as much as carbs, but it still raises blood sugar. That may be true long range, but short range, that doesn't prove true for me. I can eat a bunch of meat for a meal, and my blood sugar will barely budge. Or I can have some bulletproof coffee with a lot of fat in it, and my blood sugar will barely budge. So protein does not raise blood sugar for me short range. Now, some people might argue, well, yeah, but over 10 or 12 hours, or if you do it all the time, your blood sugar will be higher than maybe it would otherwise. I don't know. The way I measure myself is meal by meal. And meal by meal, protein doesn't really affect my blood sugar, hardly at all. So I just don't worry about it. And therefore, I would not say I'm keto. But I'm a friend of keto. Keto is kind of like a cousin to the low-carb diet, and they both work.